I'm Song, your conferences and engagement manager, and my bestie who's always with me on these.
Hi, Song. How are you doing? I'm Paul. I'm the NAI Deputy Director, and I'm so very, very pleased to be here talking about some exciting, fun stuff that NAI has going on, as we always do.
As we always do. But right now, we are in the throes of accepting media awards submissions.
Absolutely, through August 5th. So if you have a cool project, a video, a brochure, a publication, a wayside exhibit, an interior exhibit, there's all sorts of, oh, you're counting them on me. There's lots of categories in there. You got to go to the
I think we have 8. Don't we have 8?
Will sort of change it from year to year. Book, I think, got lumped in with publications. So there, you can read all about it on the NAI website just go to interpnet.com, and then we've got the Interpretive Media Awards front and center on the front of the website. And you can download all of the different categories. But man, every year we get the coolest projects that people have been working on of any budget size. We're evaluating these on the interpretation, not on the whiz bang splash of them, right? We are looking, so you could be a little nature center with 2 people on staff, or you could be a big federal agency site, and they all have the same chance of winning a media award because it's we're looking at the quality of the interpretation. And so I have been involved with the Interpretive Media Awards in one way or another for many years. And it's one of my favorite things because as my background's in graphic design, I was hired as our graphic designer way back when. And so this is a big part of my affiliation with NAI is visual communication and interpretive design. And so I think this is a cool program.
I think it's a cool program too. And this episode came together full circle because obviously I'm working on a very conference heavy projects. And I was like, hey, we should call our friends at Cuyahoga Valley National Park and then call our friends over at Design Minds, the commercial member, because they had an amazing project that did win. Was it last year? Last year's interpretive?
Design Minds has won multiple Interpretive Media Awards, and including at least one last year. So,
well, let's bring them all on. They're our friends, Lonny, Mike, and Jennie. All right. Well, thank you all for being here with Paul and I. We're so excited to be going to Cuyahoga Valley National Park during our conference in Cleveland. Cuyahoga Valley National Park is one of our offsites as well. And I know that the NCDA Roadshow is also visiting the park. Paul, when you and I were there doing our site visit in the spring, we actually stopped at the Boston Mills Visitor Center. And Pam was showing us, and it's brand new and kind of walked us through some stuff. And I did not realize how new it was, and that our very own Design Minds friends helped design that visitor center. And also they won an award, one of our interpretive media awards for that design of that center.
Yeah. So first of all, just an incredibly beautiful facility with these interactive designs, and just the space itself was really beautiful and uplifting. And then the exhibits themselves were fantastic to interact with. And so I'm very glad to have the folks from Design Minds here, including NAI board member Mike Lesperance, by the way. I think we can't gloss over the fact that Mike's a board member. Design Minds has been a longtime supporter of NAI as a commercial member and a sponsor and an advertiser. And so we certainly appreciate the work that Design Minds has been doing with NAI all this time. So thank you for that from our Design Mind folks. And then also, Jennie, thank you for being here representing the Park Service and the site itself. So what a great opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah. So just quickly, I want somebody, I don't know, you can rock, paper, scissors, who wants to go on this, but what were the challenges from the old visitor center, and what were some of the new things that you really wanted to incorporate into the building and design of the new visitor center?
Yeah, why don't I start so I can just share what we're trying to do. So Cuyahoga Valley National Park is this complex place that has lots of nodes to visit, connected by a local road system. So it's a very confusing environment. We wanted a clear arrival point for the park that we could message in a very simple way: start your visit at the primary visitor center for the park. We had a centrally located museum. I'm actually sitting in that building right now. It was called Boston Store Visitor Center. It's right across the river from Boston Mill Visitor Center. And historically, we had a canal boat building museum. In here, we were treating it as the key arrival point in the park. And there were two big problems. One, it was tucked away a little bit, hard to see, hard to find. You came in the back door. It wasn't a great arrival experience. And two, canal boat building is super interesting. It's tied to the history of the location, but that's not what visitors wanted. They wanted an overview for the park, of the park. So we actually had an opportunity to purchase another historic building right on a scenic byway. It's a much more visible building. So we picked that and really designed it for the purpose of becoming the arrival place for the park, in which we provide a comprehensive overview of the park. Where is it? What is it? What can you discover here?
Yeah, and I would just like to fill in. I think one of the design challenges was basically taking this historic building and still keeping a little bit of that historical feel in it, but also create it as kind of a lively, engaging visitor experience. So it was a real interesting blend. Some of the spaces still felt historic, some felt more modern, and trying to figure out how the design might kind of fit the space as well as fit some of our visitor goals that we were trying to achieve.
Yeah, I could add just a little bit about it. The building historically was a company store and residence associated with a paper mill. So it had these historic commercial spaces, which worked really well for exhibits. And then it had these residential spaces that we kind of opened up to create more dramatic spaces within the building. That's why it has that blend of older and newer feel. I think one of the other design challenges I really liked how Design Minds tackled it was we're trying to introduce all of these diverse stories of Cuyahoga Valley. We're not known for one iconic thing, except maybe a river that burned that's turned into this beautiful recreational river. But we have really diverse resources, and we wanted people to understand them all so they could look for what might interest them and inspire them. And figuring out how to do that in a way that felt engaging and not overwhelming, I think was one of the design challenges that was really well achieved.
Yeah.
So how is, sorry, Song, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Paul.
I was going to ask, what are the design considerations from the space itself, and then also the exhibits that you're creating for a gateway experience like that, an introduction to the park before you enter, as compared to something within the park or something that someone might be seeing on their way out? Is that a different experience from a design perspective?
It is, and I think that's something that actually Jennie just said is a big part of that, in that, and this is something, if you go back and you look at the beginning of the project and who the visitors were, who was coming here, and some of them, and this is so applicable to most places, some people are, they're aficionados. They've come often, they know the site, they think they know what they can do. Others are first-time visitors or just learning. And so the challenge, anytime you have a place that serves as an orientation and a gateway, is to provide enough information that you entice people, that you excite them about something that they can do. And and Jennie touched on it in terms of what are the different activities, what are the different interests that you might have, and then how do we facilitate getting you out to do that? And you never want to just show something that's right there, or you don't want to exactly mimic what you can go do, because you want to get people out to do that. You want to empower them. You want to give them enough background and context that excites them to go out and learn more. And so it's from an interpretive standpoint, it's a pretty it's a basic in trying to do that. And luckily, the park has so many resources and so many different resources and ways that people can interface and really make connections that it really lent itself to doing that.
Yeah, and I would just say, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of on the project, particularly on trying to create a overall narrative that actually works with both, kind of like wayfinding, orientation, and history. We kind of package it all together. And I think a lot of times orientation is just kind of thought about, oh, we'll just put a lot of the information that they could learn about and go do over here, but we'll do the stories over here. And by taking this concept of renewal, and this idea of you participating in this kind of visit, and getting them to understand history and orientation together, if you notice how the kind of the understanding the landscape and the environment, and then how that blended with kind of the renewal HQ and the trip planning, and then how we basically related that to the actual history, which was on the second floor, how it all worked together, I think was very interesting, because they can kind of piece together the whole story under one umbrella. And then as they go out, they can actually appreciate the activities, but also appreciate the history simultaneously. So to us, a great way of blending orientation and I think storytelling, I think was one of the real key successes on this.
Yeah, awesome. So in the collaborative process, right, of saying, hey, we're going to build this new thing, this new exhibit, this new visitor center, what is the process that you went through with Jennie and her team to create the space and to really get the whole concept, like you just said, of orientation and storytelling and things to do all together without it getting like super out of control? Like, how do you rein that in?
You want to go first, or you want me to throw something at that?
Yeah, why don't I start here for a minute? Because I think what Design Minds did really effectively is help us prioritize. Like, what do we want to achieve? What are our goals of how it works? And what is most important? And they really helped us let go of everything else. So, they tapped into our creative energy, but also channeled it. So, and gave us ways then to achieve our goals, but really staying hyper-focused on goals and having facilitators who kindly but relentlessly, made us prioritize and keep our eye on what we prioritize. That was a huge help.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think even more focused conversation was the visitor needs. And I think that's what we kept on hammering home to help kind of prioritize that, was what do we need to get across to the visitor and what are our visitor goals? And we did articulate those very early. And, to Jennie and your crew, being able to trust us in trying to shape that narrative tightly and making sure there's not all this extra story in there that's not needed, I think is kudos to you guys, because a lot of times people just want to continue to jam as much content in there, and it starts to dilute that story. And I think it was really well crafted in what we said and how it all kind of blended together.
And I would give a shout out. I think it's important, to note that the National Park Service has a really tried and tested interpretive planning and design methodology and a process. And so, for folks who are asking, well, how do you do this? How, there's a roadmap there. And I think, there are a lot of challenges, and especially, and Jennie, I'm sure could speak to this. And I think both she and Lonny just alluded to it okay, well, this is the roadmap, but there's an awful lot of back and forth that's happening at each part of that process to really winnow things down. But it is an iterative process. It does work, and you just got to stay with it. But that communication is key.
So I'm curious, Jennie, you were talking about goals. If I'm a visitor, which I was when Song and I visited, as Song mentioned, what are the goals? What is it that you would like me to leave with at the end of my visit? How long should I spend in the visitor center before I actually head out into the park? And when I head out into the park, what's the message that I'm taking with me?
Yeah, the visitor center isn't a place where we expect you to spend a long time. You know, it's really, you go, you get oriented, you feel connected to place, you figure out what you want to do, and you go. You know, we did want people to understand that Cuyahoga Valley National Park is a river valley between two cities. We wanted people to understand that it is a national park and why, because we get that a lot. We're a very different national park because we're based on a restored landscape, not on kind of a more pristine landscape. And you know, we really wanted people to see themselves in the environment too. So a couple of the design decisions we made is, you know, when we opened up the building for these dramatic spaces, well, it gave us these two walls, one oriented north, one oriented south, and we use murals to show the cities. We have on the wall facing north an image, it's a painting of the Green Valley with Cleveland and Lake Erie in the background. And on the other wall, we used a photograph of Akron, an aerial photograph of Akron, to create that sense of, you know, being a river valley between two cities. A topo model in between shows the valley itself. We use lots of images of people doing things in the park. Our images are a lot less scenery and a lot more, you know, people doing things in the park. And then we also really anchored it with the theme of renew as the way to explain the park. You know, Lonny introduced that's the big idea, that this is a valley that's a renewed landscape through natural resource restoration, through rehabilitating and reusing historic buildings. And it's a place for people to renew. You know, that's part of being an urban park, is providing a place for residents of greater Cleveland metropolitan area to come and renew themselves, and invite our visitors coming from out of town to do so as well.
Yeah.
Hope that answered your question.
Our goals. Yeah, one of the goals, and it's very related to what you said, Jenny, was social experience. We were really trying to get people to get excited about what they could do as a group together. So that's why some of the keywords are the sections where, you know, discovery, journey, connect, share, create. You know, we were trying to get those ideas in people's heads to kind of go out and participate in the experience together as a group. And I think that came out in the narrative. At least that was our hope, was to create that kind of mindset or attitude or atmosphere in the space that they would carry on outside.
Yeah. So we do have to wrap this up here, but I have two questions. So one, somebody tell me, what is your favorite thing in the visitor center? And the other question is, what is give me an overview of the importance of interpretive media and why it's important.
Oh, I'm going to let Lonny answer favorite part of the visitor center, because I'm curious what you reflect on looking back at it. I like it all, so I have a hard time naming a favorite.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. I'll let somebody else answer the interpretive media one. I would say it's kind of that, it's that two-story tall room, I think, was, in my mind, my favorite as well, very successful with the rock wall, which kind of gives you that scale, because we wanted to give people the scale or the sense of the environment. So we took that two-story space and really exploded it. And we even created the landscape where it was kind of going up the valley a little bit. So it kind of gave them a sense of what it would be like once you're out there. And then anchoring it with that interpretive map in the center, I thought was key, because you could literally sit at that map and basically get all your different views around that map, and it really puts you in place. And then having Akron behind you. So getting a way to orientate yourself to the valley, to the landscape, and being able to interact with it tactily in the center, I thought was a great way of kind of pulling the space and that kind of central exhibit together.
Yeah, and being there, I agree. I really did like that space.
I think that answer speaks to the interpretive point. And again, Jenny was referring or giving good examples of it, choosing images that show people in the park and allowing people to see themselves and sort of make those personal connections. And I think that's the goal of good interpretation. And so I think that the design, and Lonny sort of enumerated some ways in which I think the design does that. And you can really see yourself, but also I feel be encouraged to go out and oh, I can do this, I can do that. This is how I can see myself in this place and how I can interact with it, and coming full circle to the idea of renewing, right? And getting not only what has happened to this landscape that the Park Service has renewed, but also how can I renew by being here? I think it's a powerful message.
Well, that's awesome. And also a great reminder that you can enter your interpretive media project in NAI's interpretive media competition, which I believe the deadline for that is August 5th. So please enter your interpretive media project. Mike and Lonny, thank you so much for all that the Design Mind does with NAI, and Mike, your service on the NAI board. Jennie, thank you so much for representing the Park Service and the site in particular. Such great partnerships with, a great commercial member and a great federal agency, and it's a pleasure to work with all of you. And I can't wait to get back to Cleveland in November. This is going to be so much fun, and I hope to get to be part of that offsite session, or at least get out to the park on my own if I can't be part of the offsite session. Thank you all so much for everything that you do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Good
Stay
seeing
well.
you, Jennie.
All right. Well, thank you so much, the three of them, for joining us. Gosh, just a really great bunch of people. And Paul, remind me of that deadline again.
August 5 is when you want to submit your interpretive media project. We've got just a simple Google form to fill out. It's an easy process. And then we've got some really talented judges. We have the interpretive media competition committee is Samantha Osborne and Joe Lenke, and they're great, and they're doing a really great job in coordinating all of the submissions and the judging. One of the things that's really important this year that our fantastic committee has been focusing on is making sure that even the projects that don't receive an award receive valuable feedback from the judges. And that's something that they have really focused on quite a bit in the last couple of years, is that there's value to entering regardless of whether you win.
Right, exactly. Well, very cool, Paul. Interpretation rocks, and that includes interpretive media.
I did it wrong. I was doing it wrong. I can't do it.
I got it down.
All right. I can't do it. I'm too visually
all right, well,
that's a bad thing for a graphic designer.
Clearly, Paul needs to go practice that, and we'll see you next time on S&P.
This is why I never made it as a TV weather person. Bye, everybody.
Bye.